Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise and love and reverence is due to Allah, the Lord of all that exists. Wa salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Okay, so this is part 2 of the hadith that we covered, which was the first attempt, or Abu Bakr's first migration attempt. Is it migration or immigration? Abu Bakr's first Hijrah attempt. I think they use immigration, but migration, I believe. Anyway, Abu Bakr's first Hijrah attempt. Okay, so we covered the hadith and translated it and brought some benefits. But we wanted to bring some other benefits. Like we said, this is untranslated Islam. So we wanted to bring some untranslated benefits from the hadith. But I'm going to go through the hadith again, bikhtisar, quickly. So because we're going to reference points of the hadith as we're going, just in case you didn't see or don't have access or time to see part 1 right now. Okay, so in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, and it can be found in Bukhari, narrated Aishah, I should say. Aishah radiallahu anha said, "Lam a'qil abawayya illa wa huma yadinan ad-din." That as far back as I could remember, as far back as my memory serves me, as long as I can remember, both my parents, which was Ruman, Abu Bakr and Ruman, that was her parents' names, Abu Bakr and Ruman. So she said, as far back as I have a memory, they've always been two upstanding, righteous, practicing religious people. Okay. I'm sorry. In another narration, Aishah said, "Lam a'qil abawayya qat illa wa huma yadinani ad-din," which is pretty much similar to it, same thing. She's continued on, وَلَمْ يَمُرُّ عَلَيْنَا يَوْمٌ إِلَّا يَأْتِينَا فِيهِ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ طَرَفَيِ النَّهَارِ بُكْرَةً وَعَشِيًّا. And there wasn't a single day that ever passed in my life when I was living with my parents, except that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would visit us 2 times a day, in the morning time, in the beginning of the day, and then in the end of the day. All right, and she said, فَلَمَّ بَتُولِيَ الْمُسْلِمُونَ خَرَجَ أَبُو بَكْرَ مُهَاجِرًا قِبَلَ الْحَبَشَةِ. So when the persecution of the Muslims, the religious persecution in Mecca, ishtaddat, like when it became very, very intense, then Abu Bakr made a decision that he was going to make Hijrah, or migrate to Habasha, and that was the place that all the Muslims were migrating at the time. So you can go back to the other thing and we'll get some details about how many times they went there and what made them come back and this and that. But so this was after the second time that the Muslims had started to go back there. Then he made a decision that he was going to go there also, okay, because of all the persecution. حتى إذا بلغ برك الغماد لقيه ابن الدغنة وهو سيد القارة فقال أين تريد يا أبا بكر. Until when he was traveling to seek to go to Habasha, and Habasha is known kind of as Ethiopia now. When he was on his way there, 5 nights travel in, he came to a place called Bark al-Ghimad. And there he met Ibn al-Daghina. And Ibn al-Daghina was the chief of the tribe of Qara, which were known for their excellence in spear throwing and archery. فقال أين تريد يا أبا بكر. So he said, where you going? Where you headed to, Abu Bakr? Because Abu Bakr wasn't known for traveling that far away. He handled his business in close proximity to where he lived. So he's traveling and he's looking like he's going somewhere, and he's 5 nights to travel in. So where you going, Abu Bakr? فقال أبو بكر أخرجني قومي فأنا أريد أن أسيح في الأرض أعبد ربي. He said, Abu Bakr said that the persecution that we're going through, the religious persecution in Mecca, has driven me out of my home. My people have driven me out of my homeland. And so I just want to travel around and see, is this some place where I can worship my Lord? So he didn't say specifically, I'm going to Habasha, because you don't know where Ibn Daghina's position is going to be. Ibn Daghina is not Muslim. That's what's the most important point in this hadith is to let you know Ibn Daghina is not Muslim. Normal person, didn't accept the way of the Prophet ﷺ. As far as we know, he died not accepting the way of the Prophet ﷺ. But he realized the qualities of Abu Bakr and was like, nah. So anyway, so he said, Abu Bakr said, so I'm going to see if I can just kind of travel around hither and thither to see if I can find a place to worship my Lord in peace. All right. So immediately Ibn Daghina said, قال ابن الدغنة إن مثلك لا يخرج ولا يخرج فإنك Abu Bakr said immediately, he said, a person like you should not have to leave his homeland, nor should he be driven out of his homeland. فإنك تكسب المعدوم وتصل الرحم وتحمل الكل وتقرئ الضيف وتعين على النوائب الحق وأنا لك جار فارجع فاعبد ربك في بلادك. Okay, so Ibn Dagni immediately responded very bothered by what he had just heard, and he said, a man like you should neither have to leave his homeland nor be forced out of his homeland for verily. And then he mentioned 5 things. He said, verily, because you give opportunity to those in need to earn a respectable living, and you keep good ties with your kith and kin, and you give to help the poor and needy, and you give food and shelter to guests in your land, and you go out your way to assist those who have fallen on hard times. He said, so I will I will put my name and reputation in support of you. I'll give you a pledge or go to them and put my pledge or a promise of protection so that you can stay and worship your Lord in your own land. فارتحل ابن دغنة فرجع مع أبي بكر. So Ibn Daghin stopped what he was doing, and he traveled back 5 nights of travel with Abu Bakr to go back to Mecca in order to make sure he delivered this message. فطاف في أشراف كفار قريش, and so he went looking for the chiefs of Quraysh. فقال لهم, and he said to them, إن أبا بكر لا يخرج مثله ولا يخرج. That a person like Abu Bakr, he shouldn't have to leave his homeland, nor should he have to be forced out of his homeland. أتخرجون رجلا يكسب المعدوم ويصل الرحم ويحمل الكل ويقرئ الضيف ويعين على نوائب الحق. Do you have the audacity to drive out someone who you have the audacity to drive out someone who gives opportunity to those in need to earn a respectable living, and who keeps good ties with his kith and kin, and he gives to help the poor and the needy, and he gives food and shelter to the guests in the land, and he goes out his way to assist those who have fallen on hard times. Hold on a second. فانقذفت قريش جوار ابن الدغنة وآمنوا أبا بكر. So Quraysh, the tribes of the Arabs, they had some good qualities to them in those times. So I'm not going to get into all that. We'll get into it later. But the point is, so they realized they were in the wrong. They knew they were in the wrong from the gate. So they agreed to accept the pledge of protection from Abu Bakr. And they said that from Ibn Daghina. So the pledge of Ibn Daghina for Abu Bakr, because they didn't want any trouble between the tribes. And they allowed and said that they would give safety to Abu Bakr to live without being persecuted. وقالوا, but they said, قالوا لابن دغنة مر أبا بكر فليعبد ربه في داره. But he said, all right, we'll agree, but you go back and you go past Abu Bakr, which shows that Abu Bakr and the tribes of Quraysh, the chiefs of Quraysh, they weren't talking to each other at all. So Ibn Daghin had to be the middle person. So he said, you go back to Abu Bakr and you tell him, no problem, he could worship his Lord as long as he does it in his home, in his own quarters. فليصلي وليقرأ ما شاء, and he can read, pray, and make salat, and read as much as Quran or recite as much Quran as he wants in his home quarters. وَلَا يُؤْذِينَا بِذَلِكَ, but don't harm us, don't bother us or annoy us with that. And then they say why? وَلَا يَسْتَعْلِن بِهِ, don't make it jahar or i'lan, don't broadcast what you're doing. فَإِنَّا قَدْ خَشِينَا أَنْ يَفْتِنَا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَنَا, because we're scared that if our wives and children hear this, they'll be affected by it. Which shows that they knew that what he was doing and saying was the truth. But you know how it is. Big chief men, absolute corrupt. What is it? Corruption. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. When they're in a power like that, they keep them in the dark, so they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on, and they do what they do in order to stay in power. So they don't want their women and children to hear this. Okay. قال ذلك ابن دغنة لأبي بكر. So Ibn Daghina went and he relayed that message to Abu Bakr. Now recognize, it didn't say it like it was a condition at this time. They just said, look, just go and tell them that we don't want them doing that. Okay. So فطفق أبو بكر يعبد ربه في داره ولا يستعلن بالصلاة ولا القراءة في غير داره. Okay, so Abu Bakr returned home and he started praying, and he started to read or recite Quran in his home quarters, no problem. Okay, so then something happened. A period of time happened. After a period of time, and like we said, بدا لأبي بكر فبتنى مسجدا بفناء داره وبرز فكان يصلي فيه. But then after a period of time, Abu Bakr was a man who had, he had some wealth. So connected to his home was a portion of land that was his. And most likely it was walled off, because the way that they describe it, it had to be walled off because of what happened afterward. So it was his quarter, home quarter still, but it's a wall around it or whatever, structure around it, and it's land and then his home. So he decided to come out to his courtyard and to build a place to worship. A place, like he said, masjidan, but masjidan can mean masjid, or it can mean makan sujud, okay, like a mihrab. So it can be just a place where he set up a nice, beautiful place for him to worship at. So he made a masjid bifina idarihi, in the courtyard of his own home, and then he came out there, and that's where he started to pray at. Okay, so he can get some space or whatever. كان يصلي, so then he began to pray there regularly. كان يصلي فيه ويقرأ القرآن, and he will recite the Quran, recite it, with a voice. He wasn't whispering it. فيتقصف عليه نساء المشركين وأبناؤهم. So when the woman and the children of the mushrikeen started to hear this, they started to gather outside of his wall without him knowing, and started to listen to his Quran. And as we'll say later on, yataqassaf means like yazdahm. It means like they all came like crowded to the point that they were like over each other, trying to listen, following each other quietly, trying to listen and eavesdropping and peeking in to see what's going on. And they're hearing this beautiful Quran and what it's talking about, and they understand it. They're not like us. They understand it and understand the fasih, the richness of the language. So they understand what's going on and know that this is no qawl al-bashar. This is no statement from no mankind. I mean, from no person from mankind. This is something beautiful and amazing. All right. يعجبون وينظرون إليه. They were amazed by it, and they started to peek and eavesdrop and look in there to see what he's doing. And then Aishah said, وكان أبو بكر رجلا بكاء لا يملك دمعه حين يقرأ القرآن. And then Aisha said, as a side point, and Abu Bakr was a man. He said, Rajula. Wasn't like this some soft punk. He was a man in all right, but he was a man that was a soft-hearted man, and so he cried when something touched him. When something touched his heart, he cried. لا يملك دمعه حين يقرأ. And so when he recited the Quran, he couldn't control his tears. And like we said before, then this is the way that we're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be wailing. The Prophet ﷺ forbade wailing in any situation, but you're supposed to hold back your sound, and tears are supposed to be coming. ترى أعينهم تفيض من الدمع مما عرفوا من الحق, like Allah described the people of the scriptures from before us when they hear the Quran. You didn't see them start like something jumped in them, but you look at him and you see their eyes flowing profusely with tears because of how it touched their heart. So he would be like that. But like the Prophet ﷺ was described, when they got to the point where they couldn't hold it back anymore, it said that the Prophet used to sound like a kettle or a pot on fire, a pot of water on fire with a top on it. So when you know how it starts to like it bubbling over, that's how it would sound when he would cry. So Abu Bakr is reciting the Quran, and he's crying, and they realize it's nothing like hearing a man cry. But a man doesn't cry like he cries in salat in any other situation usually. All right. So the whole point is فأفزع ذلك أشراف قريش من المشركين فأرسلوا إلى ابن الدغنة. So when the people of Quraysh, or the chiefs of Quraysh, heard about this, and it was going on apparently for some time because it affected their women and children. It was going on some period of time before they found out. Then they had to send for Abu Dughana. They didn't just go and say, "No, we ain't dealing with this." The Arab, they were very serious about a pledge. So they had to send for Ibn Dughana. Remember, he might have been 5 nights away or whatever. So somebody had to go for 5 nights, get him, bring him back 5 nights. So that's 10 nights. They didn't say nothing to Abu Bakr. He's still going and doing what he got to do. Until they sent for Ibn Dughana and got Ibn Dughana to come back. All right. So فأرسلوا إلى ابن الدغنة فقدم عليهم فقالوا له إنا كنا أجرنا أبا بكر على أن يعبد ربه في داره وإنه جاوز ذلك فابتنى مسجدا بفناء داره وأعلن الصلاة والقراءة وقد خشينا أن يفتن أبناءنا ونساءنا. Okay, let's stop here. He said, so they sent for Ibn al-Daghina, and then they said to him, we gave you a pledge of protection for Abu Bakr on condition, now he's saying this condition, on condition that Abu Bakr worshipped his Lord they didn't say this, they said in his home quarters. Then they're saying inside of his home. فَإِنَّهُ جَاوَزَ ذَلِكَ, and he's broken that trust or that condition. And he's built a masjid or a place to worship right in the fina of his dar, in his courtyard. وَأَعْلَنَ الصَّلَاةَ وَالْقِرَاءَ, and he's reciting his salat and reciting his Quran loud and a loud enough voice that the voice or the sound is traveling out and it's causing or affecting the hearts of our women and our children. فَأْتِهِ فَإِنْ أَحَبَّ أَنْ يَقْتَصِرَ عَلَى أَنْ يَعْبُدَ رَبَّهُ فِي دَارِهِ فَعَلْ وَإِنْ أَبَى إِلَّا أَنْ يُعْلَنَ ذَلِكَ فَاسْأَلْهُ أَنْ يَرُدَّ إِلَيْكَ ذِمَّتَكَ فإنا كرهنا أن نغفرك ولسنا مقرنين أو مقرنين لأبي بكر الاستعلان. Okay, so they said, so you go to Abu Bakr, still they're not talking to him because of the respect that they have for that pledge. So they're not talking to him. They say, you go to Abu Bakr and you tell him that if he stops this and goes into the confounds of the walls of his home and continue to worship his Lord there, then he can do it. But if he doesn't, and if he refuses to do that, then we need you to take your pledge of protection back. For verily, we don't want it to be a situation where we have to break this pledge and it's bad for us and bad for you because we're breaking the pledge of someone of high status, and because of the fact that when we break the pledge, it shows that your pledge must not be as strong as people thought it was. Your pledge of protection, that is. And he says, and so we don't want to break that pledge, but we will not tolerate him making spreading this Quran, these words of Quran everywhere for everybody, for our women and children to hear. All right. So it showed you that they understood the power of the Quran. قالت عائشة فأتى ابن الدغنة أبا بكر فقال قد علمت الذي عقدت لك عليه. So Ibn al-Daghina went back to Aishah. I went back to Abu Bakr and said, you know what I agree with them upon. فإما أن تقتصر على ذلك وإما أن ترد إلي ذمتي فإني لا أحب أن تسمع العرب أن تسمع العرب أني أغفرت في رجل عقدت له. All right, so he said, you know what I agreed upon, and or what they said that they wanted you to do. He said, and now they're having a problem with the fact that you did this in your courtyard. He says, so either you're going to have to go back in the confounds of your home, inside of your home, in the walls of your home, or they want you to return your pledge of protection to me, because they don't want it to be a problem with this pledge or with a situation where this chief and these chiefs, there was a pledge made and somebody broke it. So it shows that these chiefs are breaking the pledge and this chief, apparently his pledge is not so strong. He says, so I don't want to have to be in that situation. So either you have to go back in your home or you're going to have to return my pledge. All right. So قال أبو بكر إني أرد إليك جوارك وأرضى بجوار الله. So Abu Bakr thought and said, I'm going to revoke or renege on my pledge of protection from you, and I'm going to trust and be pleased and satisfied with the protection of Allah upon me. All right. So he put himself and his family back into a difficult situation. ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يومئذ بمكة فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قد أريت دار هجرتكم ورأيت سبخة ذات نخل بين لابتين وهما الحراتان. So Rasulullah ﷺ around that time, after things got, he reneged it, and so, okay, he had to deal with difficulty again, Abu Bakr. But then right around that time, the Prophet ﷺ was in Mecca, and he said, verily, I've been shown, like in a dream or in a vision like this, I've been shown the land that we're going to make hijrah to. Okay, the land that we're going to make officially home for the Muslims. He said, all right, I saw a sabakha, dhati nakhla, bayna labatain wa huma al-harratan. Okay, so he said that he saw this description, and the description was a salty land, and it was palm trees, planted palm trees there, and it was between two mountains, and those two mountains were the two Harras, which were famous to the Arabs. فهاجر من هاجر قبل المدينة حين ذكر ذلك رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So as soon as the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم made that announcement, the Muslims that were being persecuted, they started to prepare to sneak away and travel there in small groups, or in, family by family or whatever. They started to travel over and make the hijrah, a migration to Medina. وَرَجَعَ إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ بَعْضُ مَنْ كَانَ هَاجَرَ إِلَى أَرْضِ الْحَبَشَةِ. And some of the people who had even went to Ethiopia and had been living there for some time, they started to make hijrah from there, because there it was a good Christian king. As you guys know, it was a good Christian king, the Najashi. And Najashi is not his name. In the hadith, they'll name someone by their title, like Kisra wa Kaysar and Najashi and Fir'aun even, because it's talking about that status of position that they had, but it's not their names, it's their titles. So Najashi, or the Negus, is what they called the leader of Ethiopia, or Habasha. Okay, the Negus. But the point is that it was a Christian land, but there was a land that once they heard about the Prophet ﷺ and about the message of the Quran, they said that we know that this has to be correct and true, so they have safety in our land in order to practice their religion. So the Najashi of that time, he ended up becoming Muslim, but the people around him didn't become Muslim. And so when he died, the Prophet ﷺ made Salat al-Ghaib, made the janazah prayer, or the funeral prayer, called the prayer for the one who didn't have. Ghaib is like, it's like for the person who didn't have anybody to pray for them, basically. And so the point is, he became Muslim, but it wasn't a Muslim land. So the people from Habasha started to come over to Medina in order to live their life in peace, their Islamic life in peace in a Muslim state. وتهجز أبو بكر مهاجرا فقال له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على رسلك فإني أرجو أن يؤذن لي. So Abu Bakr began to prepare himself again, so that he could go and make hijrah, because it's too difficult to live in Mecca at the time. So he prepared himself to go make hijrah to Medina. And then that's when the Prophet ﷺ said, take it easy, just hold on. The Muslims that were trying to go could go, and then he would be the last one. So he said, I have a hope that that's about to happen pretty soon. قال أبو بكر هل ترجو ذلك بأبي أنت? He said, do you really? You're hoping this? My father be ransomed for you? Nah. The Prophet ﷺ said, yes. فَحَبَسَ أَبُو بَكْرَ نَفْسَهُ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. Now, حَبَسَ نَفْسَهُ shows that it wasn't easy. That's difficult. Okay, it's like when you got to hold yourself back and wait, because it was difficult what they were going through as far as the persecution. But for the sake of being able to leave with Rasulullah and being his companion in this travel, he حَبَسَ نَفْسَهُ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ لِيَصْحَبَهُ. In order to be his companion when he decided, or when he was given permission to make hijrah. وَعَلَفَ رَاحِلَتَيْن كَانَتَا عِنْدَهُ وَرَقَ السَّمْرِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَشْهُرٍ. And he had 2 camels or riding beasts, and he made sure that they were fed from this specific special tree for 4 months. So he had to wait for 4 months after he said this before they were able to actually make hijrah. All right, so this is a story that's about the first attempt of the Prophet Abu Bakr to make hijrah, and then after that, and like I said, it's gonna be found in Bukhari, so it's totally sahih. And then after that, what happened as they made the hijrah? Okay, so now I want to get into some benefits from this. All right, so 6 of benefit from this. He said that one of the points of benefit from this was أهمية التزام الأبوين لبناء شخصية الطفل. So one of the most important benefits of this is the importance of 2 parents living their lives properly and righteously, and how it builds the personality, a good character in the children that are under them. Okay, so أهمية نشوء الطفل في أول أمره بين أبوين مسلمين في بيت مسلم وأن هذه النشأة لها أثر بالغ عليه في المستقبل. Says it shows the importance of raising children being raised of parents living good righteous lives, being righteous parents, righteous people, and children being raised up witnessing that. He said because that situation of seeing that a household or a house where that happens, it has a lasting effect on the people who live or the children who live in that type of situation. So it's important. Like I said, everything that I bring, I'm trying to bring stuff that we apply to our lives immediately. Okay. So the importance of us doing that, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the importance of us living our lives. I just lost my spot. The importance of us living our lives righteously is not just for us, but it's also for our children. Allah Jalla wa Ala says we're supposed to make a dua. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. We said, and those who make dua saying, oh Allah, هَبْ لَنَا, grant us from our wives and our children those who will be coolest to our eyes because they carry themselves in a way that's pleasing to you, and make us for the imam, for the muttaqeen imams. Okay, so the point is that we're supposed to make sure we show that good example. Allah gives a command: Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara waquduha an-nas wal hijara. All right, Allah Jalla wa Ala says, He says, "O you who believe, save yourselves and your family from the hellfire, whose fuel is man and sulfur stones, or man and stones." Most of the ulama say that the stones are sulfur stones. The sulfur stone, you know what this is? Kibrit. The sulfur stone is the thing that's at the tip of the match. Then when you burn it, how it lights up and it burns. So the fuel for the fire is going to be these stones because they burn so well, and human bodies because they burn so well in the fire. And it's time that they burn, they're going to be replaced and be replaced. May Allah keep us away from the hellfire. So He gives this description because look what He connected. Anfusakum wa ahlikum, and then the opposite. Immediately, your heart, if you're feeling it with your heart, and like I said, we have to feel this stuff. You're grouping my family and fire whose fuel is humans and stones. I need to keep my family far away from that. Okay, so He put that there like that. One of the hikmas is so you feel the contrast and say, I don't want my family anywhere next to that. All right, so the whole point is that He tells us to save ourselves and our families, and then the opposite He says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنَّ الْخَاسِرِينَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَهْلِيهِمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَلَا ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْخُسْرَانُ الْمُبِينُ. Okay, He says, the believers say, and another place then He says, "Qul," you say, "In al-khasirin, verily, the ones who are the greatest losers are those who cause loss to themselves and to their families on that day." ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْخُسْرَانُ الْمُبِينُ. Verily, that is the greatest, or most clearest loss. Can you imagine? Hashalillah, may Allah keep us far away from that. You knowing because you live wrong, and people are looking at, well, I test you the 102 was an old club, but no birds can bear the burden of another. No, that's when you're talking about people outside of you. And even with that, Allah Jalla says, وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنكُمْ خَاصَّةً. And fear the fitna. No, it don't only hit the person who's doing wrong, but it affects the ones that surround them. Okay, so if that's the people outside, then what about your family? To be able to have to, can you imagine having to see your child get locked up for something that you did, or your child getting shot? The situations that's happened when we grow up, where somebody in a car and somebody come past and just let off bullets, and dude don't get killed, he just hurt, but his daughter got killed in the back. And it's like, yo, how you even live with that? Your daughter's in the back, your son is in the back of the car, and they come in, and you know it's something you did, and it came back on you, and your daughter and son is killed because of that. How you people who know, you know how that you can sympathize, not empathize. You can at least sympathize because you've seen it, you've seen how that looks when that happens. You've seen how the grandmom and the granddad and that father and those children cry, and you see like the feeling that you know, that's because of me. That's because of me. Yo, word up. When I saw, well, I ain't going to get in that. I ain't going to get in that because I want y'all to go looking that up. But the whole point is that it's the most clear situation when you see somebody at a funeral going through the thing because they got to go. And you can see in their face, they know they're the ones who caused this, to have all these people, including themselves, lose this loved one. So now imagine Yom Qiyamah, and there's nothing in comparison to this. The worst one, or the one who has the greatest loss, the one that khasiru anfusahum wa ahlihim Yom Qiyamah. They lost not just for themselves, they got to see their families, their wives, their children being thrown into the fire because of what they did wrong. Their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, they didn't meet, get thrown into the fire because they set a bad example. So, so the point is that the juxtaposition of that is to make sure that we live righteous and we have righteous family. And if somebody, Allah decrees or He decrees. Nuh was one of the most righteous, kana abdan shakura, He was one of the most righteous of all. And still he had a wife and a son that went astray. Different people, it happened, but you know that you did your duty and you tried to save them all the way to the end. Then the Prophet ﷺ himself had Abu Talib, the one who was the best for him, did all he could, but he couldn't save him. But like he said, when they tried to make mockery of him, the Quraysh said, well, how special are you? You couldn't even say your old uncle. He said, I did do something special for my uncle. He said, because of who I am, I made prayer and dua for him. If I didn't make that dua, he would be in the lowest place of the hellfire because he knew what was right. He said, but instead, by my dua, my shafa'ah, my intercession, he'll be in the highest level of the hellfire. And that's one of the special intercessions that was called for the Prophet, that he made dua. Not, he can't get him out, but he raised him from the worst or the lowest level of the hellfire to the highest level of the hellfire because of his intercession. But he couldn't save him. He was sad about that. And Allah had to send down the ayah. Yes, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. That verily you can't save who you love or who you want, who you love, but Allah saves who He chooses based on who they are, not by your love for them or not, or your or lack of love for them. So the point is that we got to show, not by us do what I say and not what I do, because we around and we doing this and we looking at stuff we ain't supposed to be looking at this and that. Say, no, you go over there and you read your book because I need you to be better than me. No, you got to live your life right. The statement of the Khatib al-Anbiya is the best statement I can ever give you for that. The statement of Shu'ayb in Surah Hud, when he said, وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ أُخَالِفَكُمْ إِلَى مَا أَنْهَاكُمْ عَنْ إِنْ أُرِيدُ إِلَّا الْإِصْلَاحَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُ وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. Allahu Akbar. Shu'ayb was known as the Khatib al-Anbiya, and if you can read the richness of what he says in Surah Hud, you understand why. His statements were just so rich and so deep and so heart-touching. And one of the statements he made to his people, he said, I'm not trying to get away from doing anything that I'm telling y'all to do. Y'all want to see I'm practicing it the strongest. I just want goodness and a good situation to correct all of our situation. So whatever you see I telling y'all to do, I'm doing it twice as much. Like the Prophet ﷺ, when they was all hungry, and the Sahabas lifting up their joints and showing that they got a rock tied on their stomach to stop them from hunger. To tie the rock, the pressure of the rock holds their stomach. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he lifted up his joint and he had 2 rocks on his joint tied on. Show, like, I'm going through what y'all going through and then some. We together on this. So, and then he says, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And know what all is going through, I know for me and you, that the tawfiq is only by Allah. Like the Prophet said, وَمَا أَدْرِي مَا يُفْعَلُ بِي وَلَا بِكُمْ. I don't know what's going to happen to me or happen to y'all. إِلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ. I put all my trust in Him. وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. And to Him I return all my affairs and humble myself. So the whole point is that you got to live that life. You got to be about that for people to see it. They don't want to hear it from you. They want to see it in your actions. The best thing that you can ever give somebody is an example. You can talk as much as you want. You could talk till cows come home, as they say. Talk to you blue in the face, as they say. But if they see your actions speak a picture, speak 1,000 words, your actions speak 1,000,000. So that's what it is. Anyway, let's continue on. So he says, وَمِنْ أَسْبَابِ ذَلِكَ أَنَّهَا نَشَأَتْ فِي أَوَّلِ أَمْرِهَا بَيْنَ أَبَوَيْنِ صَالِحَيْنِ. And the proof of this situation that we all talked about is that the first thing that Aishah said when she started with this, she said she was raised in a situation where she had two righteous parents, always showing a good example. لم يضع من عمر عائشة فترة من الزمن وهي في جاهلية وهي في جاهلية أو شرك أو جهل أو كفر أو فسق. Okay, he said, so as a result, there was never any period of time in her lifetime where she was in a situation of where he saw the customs of the people of ignorance, or any type of polytheism, or any type of ignorance, or any type of ungratefulness, or any type of disbelief, or any type of fisq, which is the khuruj min ta'atillah, any type of disobedience to Allah in any way. So she said, لم أعقل أبوي قط إلا وهما يدينان الدين ولذلك كلما كان التزام الأبوين بالدين مبكرا كان ذلك في صالح الولد أكثر. He says, so we understand from this that the earlier you start being righteous people, the better it's going to be for your children. And the opposite is true. If I remember, rocks, subhanAllah. I'm not good with this whole computer stuff, guys. So sometimes I keep losing my place each time that I push this button. It goes back. That's why, because I still have my cursor up there. All right, I got it now. I got it. Better call for equal. All right, and then she said, okay, so I can't find that point. But this whole point is that also. The opposite is true, that the longer it takes for you to get yourself together as parents, the longer or the more situation of difficulty that you might have with those children. I'm saying that because I've seen it. By traveling to the Muslim lands, it's similar. It's so crazy because it just hit me right now as I'm talking. When we were growing up, right, our parents were the first generation into Islam, right? So a lot of them stepped into Islam and they already had children from before Islam, right? And then they would start having children in Islam that were halal children, because the children before Islam was like from out of, whatever. But then they started having righteous children inside Islam. And we was growing up born Muslim, but we will always have friends or relatives who you could tell the older ones were different than the younger ones, because we grew up and all we knew was deen. But the younger ones had seen their parents before all that, and they knew other stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it will always be interesting, the ones who will fall victim and this and that. And that's how we started realizing the difference between children that were born in wedlock and children born out of wedlock. Because in America, it don't mean nothing. You just have children. But we would see the ones who were born out of wedlock, even though they were Muslim because their parents became Muslim, we would see them go through more difficulty than we went through. We would see them be pulled to do things that we wouldn't have did. We would see somebody that's an all-A student and he get tricked to go rob banks, or he get tricked to go and shoot somebody up, or he get tricked to do something crazy. And it's like, yo, he's the best of us. But then it's like, oh yeah, like everybody is different on different levels based on what they experienced when they was young, and they were growing up with their parents. So they went through different things than we went through because our parents already had foundations. And I see the same thing even with my parent, with my children. I got married at 18. My oldest child is 28 right now. He gonna know me differently than these young ones, all of the ones that's 14 and under. All of them, they don't, it's like the story of Adam. How Adam came into the world and he didn't even know all the things that Iblis had done. He just coming in all innocent. And he come into this whole situation of seeing Iblis hating him and seeing the angels bowing to him and all that. He don't even know what's going on. That's how it is with my children when I look at them. They can't even imagine a situation where me and my wife wasn't married. The only way that they understand it must have been because they know they got brothers that's 2 times older than them. So you got a brother that's 28, a sister that's 24, a sister that's 23. And it's like, okay, that means you was married to their mom, but it's so different because we can't even imagine you best at being with our mother. So my whole point is that just the difference based on when you were born and your parents' life is going to show. But then like the Sheikh is saying, based on when you start getting your act together, it's going to show in your children. And we've seen over and over again, they come to the Muslim world and they save all the young ones. But the ones that they came with that came when they was 8 years old, 9 years old, they came over here, they still out there messing them from America. Before you know it, they can't leave the mess off, this and that. Become teenagers, they want to travel back to America. By the time they're 20, they leaving and they doing interesting things. And it's like, all right, but I gave you this whole foundation, but it's different because they got the foundation a little later in the game. Whereas these guys, all they know is you on your top game, A game, being righteous because you're in a Muslim land. So I'm saying all that to say it shows very, very clear, very clear. And so the earlier you get down to do what you got to do, the better it is for your children. Take that as your motivation. And the worse that you are, like one of the scholars of the Sulfur said, they said that you can do well and you can get the reward for your children. They brought this in the tafsir of Surah Al-Kahf, which you guys, I'm sure, read every week, where it said, "Wa kana abuhuma salihah." Then the situation with Khidr, when you talk about the third situation that he had to go save, he said he saved the wall because it was for two young boys, and their father, they were orphans, but their father was a righteous person before he passed. So their father left a treasure of knowledge and wealth, buried under scrolls of knowledge and wealth, buried under that wall, as the scholars say. Because they said, what did he leave as a treasure? They said, we believe he left knowledge because Allah wants him to inherit the knowledge, right? It said, others said, we believe it was wealth. So the thing between the two is that it was knowledge and it was wealth, so that they were using the wealth properly with the knowledge. Anyway, and the tafsir says that Allah protected this wall so that they could get older and then go and get what their inheritance was, because he wanted good, because of their parent was righteous. In the tafsir of the Khidr, it brings one of the narrations that say, so we see by this that if you do right, even if Allah decides to take you back, he'll look after your children the right way because you was righteous with him. He said in the other one, then they brought statements about, they said that it can stretch your evil and the wrong that you did can stretch through your family through 7 generations down. And as soon as I read that 7 generations down, I thought, wow, don't nobody want to hear this, but what may have we done, or other people, that made their children have to go through generations of slavery, generations of depression, generations of poverty, generations of whatever, because of things that our parents may have done. It may have just been a test. It may have been things that they did. You want to bring us a proof? One of the things I heard from the scholars that blew my mind was the situation with Bani Israel. Bani Israel is what? The children of Israel. Who is Israel? Israel is Yaqub. Who is Yaqub? Yaqub was the father of Yusef. What happened to Yusef? His 11 or 10 brothers and sisters, his 10 brothers plotted a plan and did something wrong and became righteous afterward, but it was a period of 40 years where they hadn't been able to make Tawbah properly. And so even though they corrected themselves and were righteous and died upon good, the effects of that showed in their offspring. For generations of difficulty that they had to go through because of things that they did, and they said they understood they was doing wrong, but afterward they'd be salihin. And as a result, the effects of that spread through Bani Israel, and it spreads through to this day. So you don't know what you putting in place or putting in work or putting into motion because of the fact that you just want to enjoy yourself. Like they used to say, they said, what kind of pleasure is this? When is a pleasure that's for a few minutes, but the punishment or the effects of it is so long standing or so long lasting. So the point is that for all you parents out there, myself first, everything I say is for myself first. All you parents out there, be careful to make sure that you're the best that you can be for you. Because I'm going to close out with this because it's called that then. We be on the joint because we think we all hard rocks and stuff. We on the joint of, I could deal with what come with it. You get your little hard face and, all right, whatever. I deal with it, whatever it is. I deal with it. What about your children dealing with it? What about your daughter dealing with it? Like the Prophet ﷺ said to the young boy, he said, give me permission to have intercourse or commit zina with whoever I want. He said, would you like that for your sister? Would you like that for your mother? Would you like that for your daughter? He said, well, they wouldn't like it for either. Sheikh Fawzan brought from the scholars of the past. He said, this was the proof that if he would have did it, that he would understand that he made it. You did that with somebody's sister, now it's going to happen to your sister. You did that to somebody's mother, now it's going to happen to somebody's mother. You did that to somebody else's daughter, don't be shocked when it's going to happen to your daughter. It's more than just you, Mr. Hard Rock. I had to learn that the hard way. It's more than just you, Mr. Hard Rock. You can be hard as you want, and then you start seeing your daughters going through difficulty. You start seeing your sons going through difficulty, and you know Jazab and Jinsel Amal is exactly because of some crap that you did to somebody. Be careful. All you gotta do is live right. But if you don't, Allah's al-Hakim, and He told you to do this because la yuridu wala yarda li ibadihi al-kufr. He doesn't like ungratefulness for His slaves. Wa in tashkuru yardahu lakum. That's how we know that this is not kufr of disbelief. This is kufr of ungratefulness, because it's the opposite of ungratefulness is shukr. So in this situation, there's many situations in the Quran like this where the opposite of kufr is not iman. The opposite of kufr is shukr. So in this situation is one of them. Wala yarda li ibadihi al-kufr. He doesn't like ungratefulness from His slaves. وَإِن تَشْكُرُوا يَرْضَهُ لَكُمْ. And if you do thankfulness, then this is what he's pleased with. Be thankful to Allah by raising these people on right and by being right. And if you're ungrateful, get what we get. May Allah keep us far away from it. All right, we got to go pray. Inshallah, till next time, we'll talk. Make dua for me, I make dua for you. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
كان لا يرجوك إلا محسن فمن الذي يدعو ويرجو الآخرة